back to the Paddock, a Formula One podcast. I'm here with my favorite Australians, Pete and Will, and I'm Gio, coming in all the way from New Jersey, USA. The 2022 Canadian Grand Prix is officially in the history books, and it featured some tight racing between Max Verstappen and Carlos Sainz. However, that was only in the last 15 laps, and there are 55 more laps to take into account. Uh, Max Verstappen took his first ever win in Canada, first ever. It's pretty crazy, making it 5 out of 6 races he's won. Obviously, the six. This weekend, a stellar drive and defense against Carlos Sainz, who finished less than a second behind Max Verstappen's Red Bull. Despite the two virtual safety cars and a single Mercedes AMG safety car, Max Verstappen was able to hold on to the first place without having to stress all that much. It wasn't until the final 15 laps after a safety car restart that we had to worry about Carlos Sainz's Ferrari in his rear view mirrors. Though Sainz did get close, Verstappen's defense proved to be good enough to hold off the Spaniard until lap 70. Verstappen's teammate, Sergio Perez, however, didn't fare nearly as well. On lap 9, Perez had to retire from the race due to a gearbox issue, thus ending his race a lot earlier than we would have liked. And also worth noting, our boy, Mr. Hamilton, made it back to the podium, third place. Above all, amazing race. But I do have to mention that qualifying was so much more exciting because rain made it so much drama, right? And I'll kick to you guys, but I kind of called it that. I just knew Alonso. Yeah, I mean, getting second after qualifying, I kind of went into that race knowing that he wasn't going to do well on race day. It's just something in me. I was like, no, everyone was kind of jumping the gun. But how'd you guys feel? Will, you want to kick it off? How'd you feel about the race? Any thoughts?
Yeah. Thanks, Gio. Coming at you from Adelaide, South Australia. I thought the race was interesting for a couple of particular aspects. The first is one of the biggest things that I was impressed by was Alpine and their pace. We know that they do have an incredible top speed at the moment, and seeing that old fox Alonso in P2 was absolutely fantastic in qualifying, and the crowd seemed to love it too. You couldn't hear anything because how much the crowd was cheering about his P2. So it's great to see that Alonso is still very, very popular down the pit lane and with the crowd. The race itself, like you said, Perez, that's very damaging for him. To not finish the race in his championship campaign, and I thought Leclerc did a great damage control, finishing fifth from last. So
Right, and
considering he had to take
he started what place on the grid? Didn't he have to start off a penalty?
Yeah, he started last. He took all the parts.
Oh, incredible, right? If you got to change one of them, why not change all of them?
Yeah,
Well, exactly. Adds it to the pool, so if another component fails, he doesn't have to take another penalty.
yeah, that's it. So it's very strategic, and to finish fifth after all of that's great. That puts him back in the game, and yes, he's lost points to Max, but it could have been a hell of a lot worse. I was quite disappointed that there wasn't any racer champion victims. Which is, to those that watch the race, the very last corner of the Canadian Grand Prix has claimed many world champions and many drivers, as we spoke in our episode last week. So I was watching that corner with very keen interest, but nothing happened, which was very unusual. So maybe they need to change it to make the corner a little bit harder so we can have some more entertainment, but never mind. Safety cars in the race, as we know. The Sainz goes without saying that he was very impressive with his race pace, and I think that was a very big confidence boost for Sainz because let's admit he's had a pretty horrible season so far with reliability and mistakes, etc. So very good for him. I thought Ocon was once again very consistent. Russell, Mr. Consistency, still finishing in the top 5, etc. I think this is the only race so far that Hamilton's actually beaten him. Unless I'm mistaken. The only other comments I thought I would mention was I'm really impressed with Zhou Guanyu. lately. He's really up with Bottas and ahead of Bottas a lot. He seems to be very professional in the way he goes about his racing, and he seems to also be very consistent too. So yeah, just a little tick there. And I thought overall, let's talk about Hamilton. I thought he had a much better this race than his, so far this season. Not just because he finished third, but overall as a race and racecraft, I sort of felt he showed a bit more of a spark compared with recent races as well.
How exciting was that? There was a little moment that he overtook Verstappen, but you kind of knew that he was, he wasn't going to hold that, right? I think he beat him off. No, he beat him out of the pit lane, right? Like that's what it was, right? He just came. Yeah, there was just a bit of a slow. Yeah, and even that got me excited. I was like, oh man, haven't seen this in a while. Haven't seen a Hamilton or Verstappen fall behind Hamilton in a while. So it was pretty cool. But you knew it was gonna.
Absolutely. And my last comment before handing over to Pete's comments. This is the elephant in the room. Latifi did not finish last.
He did not. He finished 16th. He is the new Mr. Consistency. George Russell who, right?
Exactly. George Russell, eat this. So Latifi's finishes so far this year: 16 in Bahrain, did not finish Saudi Arabia. 16 in Australia, 16 Imola, Miami 14, Barcelona 16, Monaco 16, Baku 15th, Canada 16th. Latifi, Mr. Consistency.
Love it.
On a serious note about, first of all, Nicholas, he's having a really rough year. Now, we've joked a fair bit about, how he's always been in Gio's dungeon. He's out whipping boy a little bit. But, bear in mind, after what happened at Abu Dhabi, he got death threats.
Yeah.
And that's just not cool. I get you're passionate and excited, but don't send people death threats, especially when the sport they're doing puts their lives on the line. Secondly of all, I feel like the cars just simply don't suit him this year. He's capable of more than what he's showing this year, and it's a little bit disappointing to see that regression. Secondly of all, touching on Will's point about Latifi finishing 16th and not last, Haas. First of all, the Ferrari power unit gave up on Mick when he was in a good points scoring position. So Mick gets my Chris Amon award for the most unlucky driver this week. The guy can't catch a break for it. And then on Kevin, and Mick as well to an extent throughout the season, the Haas strategy department has been letting down their drivers. Now, Kevin did pit early because he got shown the black and orange flag for damage, and that was on lap 9 or 10. Then he didn't pit again for the rest of the race. And by the time that second safety car came out, his tyres were gone, and he could not hold off the people behind him. So, he had a rough race. But touching on that black and orange flag, Ocon played the FIA. So, round about lap 6, 7, Ocon puts out a radio message to his team saying, I'm worried about the Haas car in front of me's front wings flapping about. The part might come off and hit me in the helmet. Next minute, black and orange flag shown to Magnussen. He's called into the pits.
Good point. That was very crafty. Agreed.
It goes to show, the chess moves the drivers are playing in their own head. The awareness of how and when to press an issue, what to say and how to say it. So, they're always thinking. They're not just laser focused, gotta catch car in front, or gotta hit this lap time. They're always looking at the bigger picture.
Yeah.
I felt like Daniel had a great race weekend. Now, the McLarens weren't on the pace. It was going to be another weekend they're going to struggle like Baku. It's a very high-speed track. But Daniel got the most out of his McLaren, and he bet Lando in every session bar FP1. So, I know it's been a hard couple weekends, and the McLaren seems to be very picky about what circuit works well at and what doesn't. But Daniel got the most out of it.
Wait, speaking of Daniel... Right, and Will, you're going to appreciate this because this is a little history. 2014. This was Danny Ricciardo's first ever uh, uh, pole win at the Canadian Grand Prix, and the way he wins it, right, was just phenomenal. I saw like a highlight video a few days ago, and I'm like, oh, beautiful, like hearts fluttering. I'm like, oh my god, it makes this year that much more devastating for him to look back at some of his like highlight career races, and 2014 was one of them, right? Like that was his like breakout, one of his breakout races. Beautiful thing.
Oh, gee, I'm so proud of you and your passion of F1 going back in the past. That was just poetry.
Right. Well, I mean, yeah. But hey, that's
So
2014 past versus when you hit me with a 1967 Canadian Grand Prix moment. I can't beat you there, man.
My work here is done. I've got... Honestly, Jed, that's showing the true passion of Formula One backing into the past, and you're 100% right. And to listeners out there, this is our objectives of the podcast, to create that excitement of Formula One and not talk about present, but look in the past. And I'm just going to say again, Jed, that was bloody poetry, and you're 100% right in everything.
I'm logging off after this.
This
That's
guy.
it. I'm done. You guys have a great one. This has been the Paddock. I'll see you guys around.
No, that's awesome, and you're so right. And I remember Daniel Ricciardo back in the day when he was that young too. He was still wearing braces while he's in the car, and we were looking like, look at this guy, look at this kid. He's only a kid, and he was instantly impressive in the car as well. So yeah, 100%.
Yep.
Right.
His smile wasn't always gorgeous.
No. There was also I can't tell you the exact year. I was looking at a bunch of moments, but there was like a horrific crash in the Canadian Grand Prix, like in the 80s, I think it was. No, 2007. 2007. There we go. I had it in my notes. Yeah, 2007. For him to come back the next year and get a podium. That was another highlight I remember. Big crash in 2007.
Yeah.
Comes back the next year, gets on podium, which is huge, right? And I can imagine
Absolutely
wiping out so badly and the Canadian Grand Prix just being in your head. Imagine how hard it is for a racer to come back to like, okay, get PTSD from a course and say, I just almost died in this car crash. I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna kick ass, right? That's huge, right?
100%.
Well, touching on that driver had an even more horrific crash a few years later, which nearly severed his arm, and he still managed to eventually come back and race in F1.
Wow.
Yep.
You know,
Absolutely.
Kubica was a driver who everyone went, you know, he's going to be able to compete with Hamilton. He bet Rosberg in karting. He was an absolute gun. He had a Ferrari contract lined up.
Yep.
In the winter. He did some rallying, and he had such an awful crash, he nearly lost his hand.
Wow.
Yeah.
And eventually he came back and he did do one season in F1. Unfortunately, it was with Williams.
He's still a test driver now, isn't he? He still is.
Yeah, he is. He's a test driver for Alfa Romeo.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Because his personal sponsor, Orline, sponsors Alfa Romeo.
Yeah. Hey, I was just going to backtrack too. That crash in 2007 in his BMW Sauber. He did mention a really funny comment after that horrific crash, because he obviously the next time they were interviews, someone said, how did it look to you when you saw it on TV? He said, well, I don't need to look at it on TV. I saw what happened inside the car. So he got the whole room in laughter because I'm like, why do I need to see it on TV? I was there.
Also, 2007, right? Obviously the crash, but whose first Formula One win was that? If you can remember, a little quiz session. Whose first Formula win?
Lewis Hamilton.
There you go.
Ooh, Hamilton's. Yes, it was. That was his first year in F1.
2007.
Geo.
Well, it's I feel like Montreal's close to home, and it's probably the more realistic next race for me, right, to go. And I'm like, you know what? I went a little, since I'm up pretty late now, and I have so much time to, I have baby in one hand and phone in the other, waiting for him to sleep. I was like, let me do some research for this episode this time. But yeah, super cool.
That's it. We're going to book you in for the next F1 past profile. Throwing the gauntlet out there.
Can't wait. It'll be like a homework
It's
assignment. It's going to be fun.
That's
All right, Mark, it's time for another feed in Dad's research session.
Hey, I'm using my time productively. I might be a shell of a human in the mornings now, but hey, something came out of it. A little rest. That's why I needed the time last week to take off. Kind of get my life back together. But yeah. Any other notes on Canada, Pete?
No, but I think we should sign off and pass over to Pete to tell us about what the next race is.
I do have a couple other points. Both Mercedes drivers had very different setups.
I did see
Russell
the
went
wing.
for a
The wing was like a noticeably different.
Yep. Yeah, Russell went for high downforce, which has got me a little bit better for the race because it puts less wear on the tyres. Lewis went for low downforce, which will give you a bit better speed overall and a bit of better qualifying performance. And finally, touching on what Will said about Carlos, I'm very much the same. I felt like this was his first weekend. He felt really comfortable in the car, and it showed. The only thing is, the Ferrari decided to understeer like my Toyota Camry into that last hairpin, and as a result, he wasn't able to take it Max out. What would have been interesting is that last safety car didn't happen if Max had to chase down Carlos. I would have loved to see that battle the other way around because I felt like Carlos would have done anything to get that first win.
Yeah.
Yeah. Part of me was, with the year Carlos has had, I was just waiting, unfortunately, for him to be the one that suffered in that, what's that called again? The Wall of Champions, right? I was waiting for him to get a little bad luck. I was hoping for the best. I was like, come on, you gotta. But it was finally good to see him kind of put together a full race, much needed, right? I'm sure, obviously, he wanted first, but just good to see him finish and be on podium and do his thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, so
Cool.
let's move on.
Back over to you. Yeah.
Move on to next race weekend, Silverstone, the home of the British Grand Prix. Now, Silverstone, for those who don't know, was originally a Royal Air Force airfield during World War II. In 1947, after the airfield was abandoned for the Air Force use, a bunch of friends decided to use it as a racetrack. Eventually it evolved into a proper racetrack, and it first held the very first Grand Prix in 1950. The track has changed a lot over the years. The current configuration has been used since 2011. It's a 5.89 kilometer circuit with 18 turns, and it runs in a clockwise fashion. This is a track that the driver absolutely has to trust the downforce and the grip the car has. It's got a lot of high-speed corners, and it's very much a track of the flow. You build up a rhythm as you handle the corners. So as the weekend develops, the drivers will pick up more and more and more speed until they are absolutely on the limit and the car can't handle it any further. There has been several memorable moments. I've cherry-picked a handful of moments. It's been so hard to narrow them down. But first one I like to cap off with is in 1973, Jody Scheckter lost control, crashed into a wall, and bounced out onto the track. Whilst still in the car, he tried to warn other drivers that, by waving his arms, hey, I'm here, don't hit the car. A pile-up ensued where about 11 cars in total crashed, and the race had to be stopped and restarted. In the end, 13 of the 29 starters finished. Mansell wins his fourth race in Silverstone in 1902 in the active suspension-aided FW14B. He absolutely bossed this track. He had absolute brute strength to push his car through the corners. He was very popular with the British fans, so after he won the race, a track invasion happened. In a recent interview on Beyond the Grid podcast, he commented that he actually had to let the spectators know not to touch his car. Otherwise, if they took anything off, he may be disqualified, which resulted in a a horde of people surrounding his car, protecting it from other fans because they just wanted to get close to him. Schumacher wins while serving a drive-through penalty. This is kind of an interesting one. It resulted in a little bit of a rule change. So in the tightly contested 1998 season, Schumacher was in a fierce title battle with Mika Hakkinen. It was a wet race, and Michael overtook Alexander Wurst during a safety car period. He's issued a 10-second stop-go drive-through penalty. Michael, being the crafty and cunning man he is, elected to take this at the last lap of the race. His pit box was at the end of the pit lane, so he crossed the finish line before serving his penalty. Bit of a fiasco ensued, however, in the end the rules did allow him to take it at any stage, which now changed the rules that when a driver is issued a penalty like a stop-go or a drive-through penalty, they have to take it within 3 seconds of 3 laps of it being issued. Protester invades the track. Irish Catholic priest and doomsayer Neil Horan invaded the track near the hangar straight, causing cars to swerve and avoiding him. He eventually got tackled once he reached the grass section of the track by a marshal. Rubens Barrichello run the race. Now, this is a moment that Will and I have spoke about in the past. Not bad for a number 2 driver by Mark Webber. In 2010, Red Bull had a big aero package which was delivered to both drivers. Part of this package was a new front wing assembly. Mark's front wing assembly worked fine. Seb's failed for some reason. Now, there was a bit of politics involved in the background, but Mark tested it and he didn't like it. He told the team, or his engineer, that he didn't intend to use it for the race. So, Adrian Newey wanted to ensure he gets all the data. He took Mark's and put it onto Seb's car. Mark took this as a slight by the team, and Seb eventually qualifies on pole. At the start of the race, Mark gets his elbows out, gets into the early lead, and cruises home to a dominant victory. On the team radio, when Christian was congratulating Mark, Mark responded with, "Not bad for a number 2 driver." Exploding Pirellis. So in the 2013 Silverstone race, due to the excessive forces that are imparted onto the tyres, 6 cars had to return to the pits after their, I believe it was their rear rights exploded due to the G-forces and the stresses placed onto them. This prompted Pirelli to change the construction of the tyre for the remaining rounds, which went into Red Bull's favour. As a result, Sebastian Vettel went on a tear and won 9 races in a row after Silverstone. Lewis wins on 3 wheels. This is more of a recent moment. His tyre exploded on the last lap. He built up at such a lead, though, he was able to cruise home and take the win. And then finally, 2021, Max v. Lewis. Now, most of us remember this, but as a quick recap, sprint race, first ever sprint race was held on Saturday prior. Max jumped ahead of Lewis, won that one. In the main race, Lewis jumps ahead of Max. On the, I can't remember the name of the corner now. Anyway, on one of the corners, Max got into front of Lewis. He was on the outside. They touched. That sent Max careering off and hitting the barriers and having a 51G accident. Lewis eventually wins the race after serving a drive-through penalty.
Yeah, with a 10-second penalty. And he goes ahead to win in dramatic fashion with a last-minute overtake of Leclerc, which was a beautiful ending to that race.
Yeah, and Leclerc was having power unit issues. Now, the reason why it wasn't a drive-through is it's actually quicker to go through the pits than actually serve the circuit. And a 10-second stop-go or a 30-second stop-go would have been too severe. The stewards were boned. Mm-hmm. Now, for this week's driver profile, we'll hand it over to our historian, Will.
Let's do it.
Will, who do we have this week?
Well, I'm very, very excited this week to talk about one of my favourite drivers of all time, and I hope I don't say that every week because I have lots of favourites. But this guy really takes the cakes in so many angles, and it's not about him just as a Formula One driver, but him as a personality too. You can't get a more alien-like personality than this driver. So,
Not even Mark Zuckerberg.
yeah, that's a stiff competition, but but anyway. So when I was doing the notes for this too, I also really laughed my head off looking back at all the funny moments too. So this has been quite enjoyable this week. So my choice, one of my heroes, I have chosen this week to be Kimi Räikkönen.
All right.
Is my screen going to share? Come on.
Okay.
Share screen, share.
The anticipation, right? You know, just the
Oh, worst drum roll ever. Come on. Share it. Come on. There we go. Kimi Räikkönen. When I found this picture, this just sums up everything with Kimi Räikkönen. This is his Formula One picture on the Formula One website, and straight away you can tell that he was told to smile and told to look at the camera. So this is the perfect point to now go back to the beginning with Kimi and say that born in 17th of October 1979, full name Kimi Matthias Räikkönen. His nickname in Formula One was the Iceman, and in the early 2000s, when he was with McLaren, they actually built him a car made out of ice, and it's worth checking out the photos. It is a perfect Formula One car, and it's all made out of ice, and Kimi's like sitting in it. But the reason why he got this nickname Iceman is due to his personality, or lack of personality. He, when it comes to interviews, the way he describes his interviews is he is economical with words. So he's a pain in the ass to interview, in other words, because he doesn't really answer very much. What we sort of spoke before this podcast, we agreed, PG and I, is that we feel he's one of the last of the natural-born racers. He's one of those that doesn't mess about with media. He just gets in the car, and he's just naturally fast and naturally talented. And that pretty much summarises his whole racing career, which I'll explain in a couple of moments. But his personality itself, couple of famous quotes. One is that there was a 2006 ceremony where Pele actually presented Michael Schumacher with a lifetime award, and Kimi didn't attend. So Martin Brundle, I believe it was, caught up with Kimi at the next race and said, "You didn't attend that award. Where were you, Kimi? Why did you miss it?" I'm about to swear here, so for the listeners with kids, unfortunately I have to put a swear word in here, but Kimi's response was to the reason he didn't attend the event was that he was having a shit.
So relatable.
So yeah, that's right. So Martin Brundle's like, okay, fair call. Now, if you want to absolutely laugh, Kimi Räikkönen did appear on Top Gear. And to people that haven't watched that show, Top Gear is all about cars, and a trend started that a Formula One driver would actually join the show and be interviewed, and they would also do a lap around the what's the track?
Top Gear test track.
Top Gear test track, which is an airport. I can't remember what the airport's called. Anyway, it's a test track that they put the Formula One driver in, and they put them in a Suzuki Liana, which is a very entry point front wheel drive car. So all these Formula One drivers compete around this track to do the fastest lap time. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this was the interview itself was just perfect Kimi. Jeremy Clarkson's trying to interview Kimi Räikkönen, and Kimi didn't even know what team he was racing for in during the interview, because at the time the car was a Lotus Renault. So Jeremy Clarkson was saying, "So who are you racing for? Is it Renault or Lotus?" And Kimi would say, "Oh, it's Lotus." And so Jeremy Clarkson, "Oh, so you race for Lotus?" And Kim says, "No, no, it's Renault." And Jeremy Clarkson, "Oh, so it's Renault, is it?" And Kimi's like, I don't know." So Clark's like, you're a multi-successful Formula One driver. You don't even know what team you're racing for. But anyway, it was very funny. Some of Kimi's famous quotes, which was hilarious. 2012 Abu Dhabi. He was with the Lotus team, and he was leading the race, and due to his personality, he had it all under control, his pit crew radioed him to say, look, you've got Alonso 2.5 seconds behind you, we'll keep you updated. And Kimi's response was, in Kimi's perfect accent, so I'm going to try and nail this too. Kimi's response was, just leave me alone, I know what to do. Which became a global sensation, and people had t-shirts made that said, just leave me alone, I know what to do. Within the same race, later in the race, there was a safety car, and when you're under a safety car, as an F1 driver, you need to keep the tyres warm and up to speed, so you've got grip on the restart. So the pit crew just said, okay, Kimi, you need to just keep all 4 tyres all warm, etc. And once again, Kimi jumps on the radio. Yes, I know, I'm doing it all the time. You don't have to remind me every 10 seconds. Which is hilarious. In 2004, he married Miss Scandinavia. Unfortunately, they did separate, but yes, he's been very popular with the ladies. He loves snow activities. He loves snowboarding, loves ice hockey. As a persona, he's been compared to James Hunt because of his playboy lifestyle. It has been known over the years that he does enjoy his vodka, and if you do happen to search YouTube, you'll actually find a video of Kimi Räikkönen absolutely blind drunk, standing on the top of his yacht, leans over the front of his yacht and falls off. So he's yes, it's worth checking out. You'll see his playboy lifestyle. One race in Monaco, he retired from the race, and instead of walking back to the pit lane, he walked to his yacht and chilled out and spent the rest of the race sitting on his yacht drinking vodka. So he's definitely a personality. He's one of the funniest moments is, as I mentioned, he's very dry and he's economical with words. But the 2018 FIA prize-giving ceremony showed Kimi's true personality. He clearly drank way too much, and he was the comedian of the night, hugging people and dancing on stage and smiling and yelling and screaming. So everybody saw a complete different side to Kimi that night, and his poor wife sitting in the crowd as well. You could just see the look on her face like, oh God, what is he doing? In 2009, there was a rained out race in Malaysia, and Kimi basically jumped onto the track as they were trying to understand the restart and what was happening, and he sat on the track eating ice cream and drinking Coke. So all in all, he has an unbelievable personality, larger than life but economical with words, and his voice, if you hear him speak, he's very, very monotoned in the way that he speaks. And I just found this morning that he claims the way he speaks is from a bicycle accident he had when he was 5, which damaged his vocal cords. So I'm not necessarily convinced that's actually the truth, but that's what Kimi does quote. So I want to start with the personality to really talk up, and as you can see, this picture really explains a lot about Kimi. He does actually smile on the odd occasion too, but that's a very rare sight, so we're showing a photo of Kimi's smile. So let's get into the stats about him and why he's my hero and why he's been great for F1 over the years. He started in 2001 with the Sauber team. He's raced with Sauber, McLaren, Ferrari, Lotus and Alfa Romeo. He is a world champion. He won the 2007 World Championship. He also holds the record for the longest drought between wins. So he had a long patch where he just raced and raced and raced, but was not even remotely close to winning a race, but finally did. In his racing career, the records Kimi currently holds is he's the only driver to win the V10, V8 and V6 turbo engines. He currently is the all-time leader in relation to race starts in Formula One. He has the longest drought between races, as I mentioned before. So with his racing career, he started when he was 10 years old. His first race outside Finland was in 2015. And typical characteristics of Kimi, at Monaco, when he was 15, in his go-kart, he was thrown the wrong side of the safety fence in a first lap collision, but continued driving until he ran out of road. Undeterred, he lifted the cart back onto the track and continued racing to finish third. So, yeah, pretty funny, pretty funny. By 20, he was the British Formula Renault World Champion, won 7 out of 10 races. And he sparked a lot of controversy because he entered Formula One with only 23 races under his belt. So the FIA, they cooked up a big stink saying he doesn't have enough experience to join F1. However, in his first testing session in 2001, he was half a second faster than the regular driver Pedro Diniz in the Sauber team. So Sauber knew that they had a real hotshot person here, so they actually called him under an alias of the name Eskimo, because they knew as soon as people knew about this guy, everyone would be after him. So Eskimo impressed very much in 2001. And in his very first race, this is what I can't get over about Kimi Räikkönen. First race, half an hour before the race, they couldn't find Kimi. And it was like, where is he? Where is he? Only to find that he was fast asleep on the floor in his motorhome. Now, that's insane. You think of the risks you put your life at by being an F1 driver. I don't know about you guys, but if it was me, half an hour before the race, my heart would be like 3 meters beating in front of me, you know.
I'll be doing the James Hunt throwing up before a race.
That's right. All of these things, you know, you see it on the grid. You see the guys in the car focus. You know, I've seen drivers do the sign of the cross in the car, etc., before the race. Where's Kimi? Oh, he's fast asleep in his moto. Someone get Kimi and put his helmet on and get him in the car. So and that's just inhumane. I don't understand how he does that. As we said, started with Sauber. He joined McLaren in 2002 due to his success at Sauber, and obviously if you're picked by McLaren, you are a good driver. And this is back in the days where McLaren was a front-running team, unfortunately not in today's world, but McLaren were winning championships at just a few years before this time. But unfortunately, the year that Kimi did join, the McLaren was plagued with unreliability, and unfortunately, he was not able to get close to winning the championship because of the performance of the car. So it did prompt Raikkonen, after a number of seasons, to move to Ferrari. He has been runner-up on a number of occasions too. He was runner-up in 2003 to Schumacher, runner-up to Alonso in 2005. When he did join Ferrari, the first year he was there, he did become the world champion as well, which was sensational, and that was his year. A very, very controversial year, 2007, with McLaren and the Spyglass saga, which is a topic of discussion for another day. But that was the start of Lewis Hamilton's career as a rookie, and the year that Hamilton and the reigning world champion Alonso were put head-to-head with each other at McLaren, which... sparks flew, emotions ran high, and worth checking out the season. But Kimi managed to become the world champion in the last race of the year, and joined the elite Formula One world champion club. Now, Kimi, with his absolute pure racing talent, also decides to leave the sport after having a couple of another few seasons with Ferrari with an unreliable car. Kimi just decides to join the World Rally Championship. So 2 years out doing rallying. I mean, that to me just shows how talented he is as a driver. That's just insane. I'm just going to switch sport and do that. Gets bored of that, comes back to Formula One, joins Lotus, and causes all sorts of controversy there because he outperformed the car and he outperformed expectations, and with his contract he had a lot of bonuses if he did score points or win races, and this actually put Lotus into a huge amount of financial debt. So very, very strange occasion where the driver's too successful and can put the team into financial troubles.
Apparently Lotus still owes him money.
It's unbelievable. Wow. Unbelievable. So after this stint, he did get a race win at Lotus as well, as we mentioned. But then in 2013, Kimi re-signs with Ferrari for the 2014 season. Unfortunately, he really was completely off the pace to his teammate Sebastian Vettel. So he always did appear to play a number 2 driver role. I did feel through that time too. I kept thinking, look, Kimi's finished. He's not competitive. He's miles off his teammate. But he still managed to stay there for a very long time. I think it was about 4 or 5 years. And so, in 2019, Kimi, at the end of his career, he joins Alfa Romeo. And it was famously noted in interviews that he's doing it for the money.
I loved his comments during the press interviews regarding that. Now, Kimi, do you still have the passion and the drive? What do you think? No, I don't have it at all, I'm just doing this for the paycheck or something like that. It's like, the guy loves racing. He loves competing.
Hey, and I'm sure the cash doesn't hurt either. I'm sure that.
Oh, he was probably paid some big bucks. Apparently, he was paid by Ferrari several $1 million not to race in F1 because they had Alonso tied up for 2010. It was like, here's several $1 million to bugger off.
Unbelievable. And just to wrap it up, Kimi announced his retirement last year. So this is the first season since 2001 that we haven't seen Kimi Räikkönen on the grid. So I already miss him. It was always great having him as part of the field. The success of his career was that, as we mentioned, he was the 2007 World Champion. He won 21 races and he also scored 103 podiums. So he'll never be forgotten. Thank you to all the listeners and your patience in me talking about this one. And I know I've done a very long one with this one, but Kimi deserves it. I could talk about Kimi till the cows come home, and hope you enjoyed this session because
let's get Kimi on the show. You think he'll answer emails, unsolicited emails, and requests for an interview? Imagine how
let's put that message
robotic
out, right?
That interview would be. Like, I hope he that would be so awesome.
Kimmy, if you can hear us, Kimmy, please reach out to us. We'd love to have you part of the show.
Kimmy is listening. He's always around. He listens to all of our conversations.
And fans, if you do want to see Kimmy at his absolute best, check out the 2005 Suzuka Grand Prix, where he went from 17th and won the race on the last lap. That is peak Kimi Räikkönen right there. The guy just knew how to drive fast.
Thanks, Pete. Hey, this was a good one, boys. Ray, you definitely were missed. I was expecting for you to raise your Petronas Mercedes flags all over the place after seeing Hamilton back on podium, and shed all your Ferrari clothing. But we'll make sure to mess with you a little bit on the next one. But hey, you guys have been listening to The Paddock, a Formula One podcast for new and existing Formula One fans, coming at you from both New Jersey, USA, and Adelaide, South Australia. As always, we love hearing your feedback and your questions. Please feel free to reach out anytime to any of our usual platforms. And of course, our quote of the week has to go to the man we were just talking about, Kimi Räikkönen. Just leave me alone. I know what to do. Until next time. Bye, everybody.
See ya.
Cheers, guys.